Salvete omnes, welcome to the fourth and final installment of our series on how to pronounce Ecclesiastical Latin. In this lecture, we'll be looking at how to pronounce consonants. Let's start with the letter C. C is usually hard like the letter K. In Ecclesiastical Latin, however, the sound changes to CH, as in cherry, in front of the letters E, I, AE, or OE. It never sounds like the letter S, as it often does in English. So, while English speakers normally call this fellow Cicero, in Church Latin we call him Cicero. The letter G works in much the same way. It's usually hard, as in the English word gull, like seagull. So, the word for rejoice is hard, gaudete. The G sound is hard.
Gaudete, gaudete, Christus es natus, ex Maria Virgine gaudete.
In front of E or I, however, it sounds like the G in the English word giant, so it's a softer sound, J. The genitive of rex, king, of the king, is regis. Now the letter I. This is sometimes used as a consonant in Latin. You may recall from an earlier video that this consonantal I later becomes the letter J. In any case, the consonantal I is pronounced like our consonant Y. So the Latin word for just, then, is pronounced justus. Now, the letter Q sounds the same as it does in English, and as in English, it is always followed by the letter U, which just forms one sound, qu. R is trilled, as it still is today in modern forms of Latin, such as Italian and Spanish. All right, let me try to roll an R. Roll. Then there's the S sound. Now, normally, S sounds like the S in the English word sit, all right? Except between two vowels or at the end of a word. There it has kind of a Z sound to it. For instance, the word for miserable is pronounced miser. And this word, which means nation, we pronounce gens. Notice also the soft G sound with the G followed by an E. And the S at the end is Z like gens. There are also certain combinations of consonants that have a distinct pronunciation in Ecclesiastical Latin. Let's start with the combination BS. Now, here we pronounce, in Latin, we pronounce both letters, the B and the S. So this word here we pronounce obsessus. Notice you can hear them both. We find the exception at the end of a word where the BS sounds more like a BZ. So for the word for city is pronounced herbs. Now, two C's, CC, usually sounds like two K's, two hard sounds. The setting of the sun, for instance, is solus ocasus. In front of E or I, however, it sounds more like a TCH. For instance, in this word, which means behold, ecce. Now, the combination that makes that sound in English, CH, does not make the tr sound in Latin. Instead, a CH sounds more like a K with an H sound after it, an aspirated K. For instance, in this word, chorus. Now, double G before E or I, this is probably starting to sound familiar, sounds more like the DJ in our word adjust. So the Latin word for a heap of something, spelled A-G-G-E-R, is pronounced ager. Everywhere else, it sounds like two G's, as in our pronunciation of the word leg guard. And so this word, which means to approach or attack, we get our word aggressive from this. Aggredior. Notice when we say aggressive, it's kind of one G sound, but in Latin we've got them both. Aggredior. Now another common combination with the letter G is GN. This sounds more like our NY. Like we hear echoes of this sound when we talk about the reign of Charlemagne, that is Carolus Magnus. Now the combination SC sounds more like an SK, except, and this is a big exception, and it probably won't surprise you, in front of E or I. So if I want to say I know in Latin, scio. Finally, the combination TI. When preceded by S, T, or X, or followed by a consonant, it sounds like the TI in patio. So this word, which means a sacrificial victim, is pronounced hostia. In other places, the combination TI sounds more like a TZ. Think of Pope John Paul II's encyclical on faith and reason. In Latin, we pronounce that fides et ratio. All right, so that ends our overview of how the sounds of Ecclesiastical Latin are different from the sounds of English. Now, if you'd like to look in more detail, remember I have the chart on my website on Eterna Latina. Feel free to consult that or download it if you want. And of course, you can use the contact page to ask me any questions. Alrighty? Well, thank you for joining us. Valete.